Before the world knew magic, there was a boy with nothing but a pencil and a dream. Before castles, characters, and imagination shaped generations, there was failure, rejection, and doubt. This is not just a story about success. This is a story about persistence, about believing when no one else does, about standing up again after losing everything. Today's story is about Walt Disney, a man who was told he lacked imagination, a man who went bankrupt, a man who was rejected again and again, and yet he changed the world. In this story, we will walk through his life step by step, from poverty to possibility, from failure to creation, from rejection to legacy, not in a rush, not with noise, but with understanding. Because real success stories are not built overnight. They are built through quiet decisions, long nights, and the courage to keep dreaming. Welcome to Success Avenue. This is a place where we don't just talk about success. We explore the journey behind it, the struggles, the lessons, and the mindset that turns ordinary beginnings into extraordinary outcomes. So sit back, listen closely, because this story is not only about Walt Disney. It's about what's possible when you refuse to give up on your imagination. Let's begin. Chapter 1. A dreamer is born. Long before the world knew his name, Walt Disney was just a boy in a struggling family. He was born into poverty. Money was always tight. Stability was rare. His childhood was not rooted in one place. The family moved often. Homes changed. Schools changed. Nothing felt permanent. This constant movement made life uncertain, but it also made Walt observant. He noticed small details, faces, moments, stories hidden in everyday life. As a child, he didn't have many toys, but he had something else: imagination. To help his family survive, Walt sold newspapers at a young age. Early mornings, cold streets, long hours. While other children slept, he worked. It was tiring, sometimes discouraging, but it taught him discipline early in life. It taught him responsibility, and it taught him how hard life could be. Even then, something inside him stayed gentle. When he had free moments, he drew on scraps of paper, on the backs of notebooks, anywhere he could. Drawing was his escape, a quiet place where the world felt lighter. He loved stories too, simple stories, funny ones, stories that made people smile. In those moments, the noise of poverty faded. Walt didn't yet know what he would become. He wasn't thinking about success or legacy. He was just a boy who liked to create. But those early years shaped him deeply. Living without comfort taught him empathy. Moving constantly taught him adaptability. Working young taught him perseverance. And drawing taught him hope. Even in small places, even in difficult beginnings, his dreams quietly grew. Because great dreams don't always start in big houses or perfect conditions. Sometimes they begin in struggle, with a pencil, a piece of paper, and a child who refuses to stop imagining. Chapter 2. Finding his passion. As Walt Disney grew older, one thing became clear. His love for drawing did not fade. It grew stronger. Whenever he had a free moment, he drew. In classrooms, at home, during breaks between work. Drawing was not a hobby for him. It was a language, a way to express thoughts he couldn't put into words. He became curious about how drawings could move, how characters could feel alive, how simple lines could tell powerful stories. That curiosity led him to animation. At the time, animation was new, unstable, and risky, but Walt was drawn to it. He began studying art more seriously, not in luxury, but with determination. He took art classes when he could. He practiced constantly, and he learned by doing. To support himself, he worked small jobs. None of them were easy. None of them were glamorous, but they paid the bills, and they gave him time to learn. Every paycheck was partly survival and partly investment in his dream. Walt didn't see imagination as something childish. He saw it as power. He believed imagination could shape reality, that ideas could become worlds, and that stories could move people. While others focused on safe paths, he focused on creating. He studied how movement worked, how timing created emotion, how characters connected with audiences. He failed often. Drawings didn't come out right. Animations felt flat, but he didn't stop. Each mistake made him better. Slowly, his identity became clear. He wasn't just someone who liked to draw. He was a storyteller, someone who believed that creativity mattered, that joy mattered. He didn't yet know where this path would lead, but he knew this much. Passion gives direction, and his direction was set. Not toward comfort, not toward certainty, but toward imagination. Chapter 3. First Failures and Rejection. The real world tested Walt Disney early, and it tested him hard. One of his first serious jobs was at a newspaper. He was excited, hopeful. This felt like a step forward, but it didn't last. He was fired. The reason stayed with him for years. He was told he lacked imagination. Those words cut deep. For someone who lived through creativity, being told that imagination was missing felt like losing identity. Doubt followed him. Was he wrong about himself? Was this dream unrealistic? Soon after, Walt tried building his own small studio. He wanted to create freely, on his own terms. But passion was not enough. Money ran out. Plans failed. Mistakes added up. The studio struggled from the start. Bills piled up. Support disappeared. Eventually, it collapsed. Another failure. Another reminder that belief alone does not guarantee success. These moments were painful. Rejection from employers, failure as a founder. It would have been easier to stop, to choose something safe, something predictable. But Walt did something different. He paid attention. He looked at what went wrong, what he didn't know yet, what he needed to learn. Failure became a teacher. It showed him that creativity needed structure, that vision needed discipline, that ideas needed protection. Each rejection made him tougher, more aware, more determined. He began to understand something important. Failure is not a sign to quit. It is a signal to adjust, to grow, to try again, better. Walt didn't lose his imagination. He sharpened it, and quietly, through rejection and doubt, resilience was born. Chapter 4. Bankruptcy and Rock Bottom. Failure had already visited Walt Disney, but this time, it stayed longer. His first animation company collapsed completely. There was no recovery, no second chance. The business failed. Money was gone. Trust was broken. Bankruptcy followed. With it came something heavier than debt, loss of credibility. People stopped believing in him. Investors disappeared. Doors closed quietly. Walt had nothing left. No company, no security, no clear path forward. He traveled with almost no money, uncertain of where he was going, uncertain of what came next. These were his lowest days. Long nights, silent doubts, questions without answers. Was this the end of the dream? Had he pushed too far? Everything around him suggested it was time to stop, but something inside him refused. Even at rock bottom, his imagination remained alive. He didn't deny the failure. He accepted it, but he didn't let it define him. Instead of quitting, he reflected. He thought about ownership, about control, about protecting his ideas. He realized that talent alone was not enough. Vision alone was not enough. Survival required understanding the business side too. Rock bottom stripped him of comfort, but it gave him clarity, and clarity gave him strength. In those moments of despair, stubborn hope took root. Not loud hope, not confident hope, quiet hope, the kind that whispers, "Try one more time." Walt listened, because sometimes rock bottom is not the end. It's the place where belief is tested and rebuilt stronger than before. Chapter 5. Mickey Mouse is born. Just when things seemed impossible, life tested Walt Disney one more time. He had finally found some stability with a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. The audience liked Oswald. Studios liked Oswald. For the first time, things looked hopeful. Then, suddenly, it was taken away. Due to contracts he didn't fully control, Walt lost the rights to Oswald. The character he helped create was no longer his. It was another loss, another blow. But this time, something changed. Instead of giving up, Walt made a decision. He would never lose control of his creativity again. During a train ride filled with frustration and thought, an idea began to form. A small mouse. Simple, expressive. He called him Mickey. Mickey Mouse wasn't just a new character. He was a fresh start. Walt poured everything into him. Emotion, humor, hope. Mickey wasn't perfect at first. Early versions failed to impress, but Walt kept refining, improving timing, adding sound. Then came the breakthrough. Steamboat Willie. Audiences didn't just watch Mickey. They connected with him. They laughed. They smiled. And suddenly, Walt Disney had something real. This was his first true success. More importantly, it was his creation. He owned it. That ownership changed everything. Walt learned a powerful lesson. Creativity must be protected. Ideas have value, and loss can be a teacher. What was taken from him forced him to build something better. Mickey Mouse became a symbol, not just of entertainment, but of resilience. From loss came creation. From setback came clarity. And for the first time in a long while, relief replaced despair. Because sometimes what you lose creates space for what you're meant to build. Chapter 6. Risking everything on innovation. By now, Walt Disney had tasted success. Mickey Mouse had changed his life. The studio was growing. The future looked stable, but stability was never his goal. Walt had a bigger vision. He wanted to create the world's first full-length animated movie, not a short, not a cartoon clip, a full story. Many people thought the idea was foolish. Some called it risky. Others called it impossible. Behind his back, they called it Disney's folly. No one believed audiences would sit through a long animated film. Even people close to him were worried. The cost was massive. The technology was new. Failure would mean losing everything. And still, Walt moved forward. That film was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. To make it, he spent every dollar he had. He borrowed money. He mortgaged his house. He pushed the studio to its limits. Fear was everywhere. Deadlines slipped. Costs kept rising. Stress filled the rooms. There were moments when even Walt felt doubt, but he trusted his vision more than his fear. He believed in storytelling, in emotion, in magic. He believed that if people connected with the story, they would stay. When Snow White was finally released, the silence was heavy. Then something unexpected happened. The audience didn't leave. They laughed. They cried. They applauded. The film was a massive success. What everyone called a mistake became a masterpiece. Snow White saved the studio. It proved animation could be art, and it changed entertainment forever. Walt didn't just take a risk. He redefined what was possible, because big vision always looks dangerous before it looks obvious. And courage isn't the absence of fear. It's trusting your dream, even when fear is loud. Chapter 7. Success, fame, and pressure. After Snow White, everything changed for Walt Disney. The studio grew fast, very fast. New films followed. New characters were born. Audiences grew larger. Disney was no longer a small dream. It was becoming a major studio. With success came pride. Walt had proven the world wrong. Animation was no longer a risk. It was a force. But success brought pressure. More employees depended on him. More money was at stake. More expectations filled the room. Every decision mattered. Managing creativity was one challenge. Managing people was another. Managing finances added even more weight. Walt wanted everything to be perfect. Every detail, every frame, every story. That perfection came at a cost. Stress increased. Tension grew. Not everyone understood his vision. Not everyone agreed with his methods. Some employees felt pushed too hard. Some felt unheard. Leadership became complicated. Walt was no longer just a creator. He was a manager, a businessman, a symbol, and symbols carry heavy weight. Public success did not mean inner peace. Behind the scenes, the pressure was constant. Deadlines, budgets, expectations from audiences and investors. Success demanded more success, and the higher he climbed, the more careful he had to be. Walt began to understand something important. Winning once does not make things easier. It makes them more complex. Success opens doors, but it also adds responsibility. Every step forward required balance between vision and reality, between creativity and control, between ambition and sustainability. Walt was proud of what he built, but he was learning a new lesson now. Success is not simple. It is work, it is pressure, and it tests you in new ways. Chapter 8. War, Setbacks, and Reinvention. Just when things felt established, the world changed again. For Walt Disney, a new challenge arrived from outside his control. World War II. The impact was immediate. Resources became limited. Audiences shifted. The studio's focus was disrupted. Many artists were called to serve. Projects were paused or canceled. Plans no longer felt certain. Financial struggles returned. Profits dropped. Costs stayed high. Pressure tightened once more. The success that once felt solid now felt fragile. Walt faced a difficult truth. The studio could not survive by doing the same things as before. So he adapted. Instead of resisting change, he leaned into it. The studio began producing training films, educational content, work that supported the times. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't what Walt dreamed of creating, but it kept the doors open. More importantly, it kept the team together. When the war ended, the world was different. Audiences wanted new experiences, new stories, new forms of joy. Walt listened. He expanded beyond animation into live action films, into nature documentaries. Each move was a response to reality, not panic, not fear, adaptation. He refused to stay stuck in the past, refused to rely on old winds. Reinvention became his strength. This period taught him something powerful. Success is temporary if it cannot evolve. Endurance is not about holding on tightly. It's about knowing when to change. Walt didn't fight the uncertainty. He worked through it, because survival isn't about avoiding setbacks. It's about learning how to move forward when the ground shifts beneath you. Chapter 9. The Impossible Dream, Disneyland. While others focused on movies, Walt Disney was thinking beyond the screen. He had a new idea, not just something people would watch, but something they could enter, a place where stories came alive, where families could step into imagination together. A theme park. At the time, theme parks were simple, messy, built for quick fun. Walt wanted something different, clean, safe, thoughtful, a place built with care. When he shared the idea, critics laughed. They said it was too expensive, too risky, too unrealistic. Some called it a distraction. Others said it would fail completely. Even investors were unsure. Building a park from nothing required massive funding, complex planning, and constant belief. But Walt didn't see a park. He saw an experience, a place where stories had space, where imagination wasn't limited by a screen. He wanted children and adults to feel wonder again. So he moved forward. He studied architecture, urban design, human behavior. Every detail mattered. How people walked, how they waited, how they felt. Construction was difficult. Money ran low. Delays piled up. There were moments when failure felt close, but Walt stayed focused. When Disneyland finally opened, the first day was far from perfect. Systems failed. Heat caused problems. Mistakes were visible. Critics rushed to judge. But something else happened. People smiled. Children laughed. Families stayed longer than planned. The feeling was real. Disneyland wasn't just a park, it was a world. Walt had done something new. He didn't sell rides. He created memories. He didn't build products. He built experiences. And once again, the idea everyone doubted changed the industry forever. Because vision doesn't follow logic, it leads it. And sometimes, the impossible dream is simply the one no one else is brave enough to build. Chapter 10. Legacy Beyond a Lifetime. As the years passed, Walt Disney began to think differently. Success was no longer about proving anything. He had already done that. Now, his focus shifted to the future, beyond movies, beyond parks, beyond his own lifetime. Disney's influence continued to expand. New films, new ideas, new worlds. words, but at the center of it all remained the same belief. Storytelling matters. Stories shape how people see the world, how children dream, how families connect. Walt believed imagination was not an escape. It was a foundation, a way to teach hope, curiosity, and possibility. He cared deeply about culture, about creating spaces where creativity was respected, where innovation could grow. Even in his later years, he kept asking questions. What comes next? How do we make it better? How do we inspire the next generation? He wasn't interested in stopping. He wanted to build systems that would continue, even when he was gone. He invested in people, in ideas that could grow beyond him, in values that could guide future leaders. Walt understood something many never do. Personal success fades, but shared vision lasts. He didn't measure achievement by money alone. He measured it by impact, by how many people were inspired, by how many stories were told, by how much imagination was protected in his mind. Profit was a result, not the purpose. Legacy was the goal, to leave behind something meaningful, something lasting, something that encouraged others to dream. Walt Disney wasn't trying to be remembered. He was trying to build something worth remembering. Because when success is guided by purpose, it outlives the person who created it. And that is the difference between building a business and building a legacy. Lessons for us. The life of Walt Disney leaves us with more than stories. It leaves us with lessons, not lessons about fame or money, but about belief. Walt failed many times. He was rejected. He was told he wasn't good enough. Yet he didn't stop. Failure didn't define him. It trained him. It taught him patience. It taught him resilience. It taught him how to grow stronger instead of bitter. One of his greatest lessons is simple. Progress takes time. Walt didn't rush success. He stayed with his ideas. He worked through doubt. He trusted the process, even when the outcome was unclear. Another lesson is imagination. Walt believed imagination was not childish. It was essential. Imagination allowed him to see what didn't exist yet, to build worlds before others believed in them. He showed us that imagination is not escape, it is a tool, a way to shape reality. And maybe the most important lesson of all is belief. Belief in yourself when no one else does. Belief in your idea when it looks impossible. Belief that small beginnings can lead to something meaningful. Walt didn't start with power. He started with a pencil. He didn't start with confidence. He built it through effort. And he didn't build success alone. He built it by inspiring others to dream with him. So if you're listening to this and wondering if your dream is too big, remember this. Every great creation once lived only in someone's mind. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need approval. You don't need certainty. You need patience. You need courage. And you need imagination. Because if you can dream it, you can build it. And that journey starts exactly where you are. This was not just a story. This was a journey from doubt to belief, from failure to imagination, from nothing to something timeless. Thank you for staying with us till the end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing in stories like this. At Success Avenue, we don't just share success. We share the road to it, the failures no one claps for, the nights no one sees, the courage it takes to continue. If this story touched you, remember this. Your current struggle is not your final chapter. Rock bottom is not the end. Sometimes it's the foundation. Doubt will come. Fear will speak louder than hope. People will say it's impossible, but dreams were never built with permission. They were built with belief, with patience, with stubborn faith. So if you're tired, rest, but don't quit. If you're lost, pause, but don't give up. Because every great story once looked like a failure. Keep dreaming, keep building, keep walking your own avenue to success. This is Success Avenue, where dreamers find direction. And remember, if you can dream it, you can build it. See you in the next story. Until then, believe in yourself,